Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started in a second here. I just wanted to welcome you back to the Wiseman Foundry. Most of you are faces that I've seen at least once before, so I'm happy to see you here. If you don't know who I am, my name is Jonathan Griffiths. I'm the director of the Wiseman Foundry, and I'm incredibly excited to have our panelists here today, and Carolyn is our fantastic moderator. I'm sure all of you know Carolyn, but you may not know everything about our panelists, so I'll let Carolyn do a brief introduction for them. Thank you, Carolyn.
Great. So welcome. Good to see everybody. And I'm going to ask for a minimum of background noise so that we can get the recording as clearly as possible. So welcome to Gayatri Khanna, Milaaya, and Jose Fernandez. I'll do a brief introduction, then we'll dive right in. So Gayatri Khanna Milaaya is a graduate in entrepreneurial studies and marketing from Babson College. After graduating, Gayatri moved to New York City and worked with various garment companies before getting a job at Saks Fifth Avenue as a buyer for designer wear. This initial experience gave her the confidence to venture out to start Milaaya Embroideries, gorgeous products. And she supplies beautiful embroidery to almost every luxury house you could think of. Today, having expanded its base over the 4 fashion capitals of New York, Mumbai, Milan, and Paris, Milaaya Embroideries provides complete packages with fabrics, trims, embroideries, embellishments, stitching, and packaging for global fashion brands. And just a side note, she has provided apparel to many people who go to the Met. Oh, pretty fun. So yeah, welcome. So Jose Fernandez is CEO of Global Merino, a partnership of merino textile experts focused on delivering superior quality performance wool products. He owns and runs this textile business specializing in making technical merino-based fabrics for performance apparel companies in cycling, running, hiking, skiing brands. He's a champion of sustainability and is a supplier to Patagonia, a really tough company to be a supplier to, but a wonderful company as we know. Jose is a graduate of Stanford University. Not only does he have a son in the undergraduate program, and 2 of his other children have graduated from Babson, but he generously gave a presentation in my entrepreneurship and fashion class last spring, and is now working on his MBA here at Babson. One of his clients described Jose as a motivated self-starter, full of entrepreneurial insights and drive, which of course makes him a perfect fit for Babson College. So welcome. So I've just introduced you, but you'll do a much better job of describing who you are and what you do. And Gayatri, would you like to lead us off?
Sure. Thank you for that very generous welcome, Caroline. Lovely to see you all there. I used to sit right there many moons back, and now one thing led to another, and I have this wonderful company called Milaaya Embroideries, and we provide hand embroideries, which is an ancient craft of India, to the luxury brands around the world. So we have an office in New York, Paris, London, and Milan, and we work with top luxury brands to some amount of contemporary brands. But our forte is high-end luxury embroidery or couture embroidery. So yeah, that's what we've been doing for the last 25 years nearly, and it's been a wonderful journey. Our head office is in Mumbai in India. I'm sure and hope all of you know where that is. We have about 500 people here, and we have a big infrastructure spanning over about 30,000 square feet of infrastructure, which sums up our vertically integrated factory. So
and
it's wonderful.
And you also sell directly to customers now, correct?
We only sell directly to customers. We have our own offices. These are our own offices in the different cities. So they are our own people. They just are a liaison office. They have samples at their marketing offices. So they have our embroidery samples. They speak local languages, and they're able to communicate very quickly with the local clients and brands there, wherever these are.
Terrific. Jose, could you do a similar self-intro?
Of course. I'm not sure if I can do better than you did. As Gayatri said, that was very kind and generous. But yes, to build on that a little bit, as you said, we're essentially a technical textile manufacturer who happens to use merino wool as a primary ingredient, as a primary technology. So our role in the process is to work with our branded customers to engineer fabrics that help them create garments that either enhance performance, perceived performance, or comfort as people are in their athletic activities, whether that be hiking or skiing, running, or cycling. We manage the supply chain from farm. Our wool comes from Australia and New Zealand, where we contract directly with growers for our raw material. And we manage the supply chain all the way through our manufacturing, where we ship finished fabric. And this process allows us to do a couple of things. Number one, it allows us to set a unique specification for our fiber and raw material, which ultimately translates in the end to a more consistent and better finished product. And it also allows us to manage from a sustainability standpoint each step in the process. Because we work directly with growers for our raw material, we can help direct how farms are managed, how flocks are managed, land is managed, and to meet certain third-party standards and audits that we have done on farm and at each step of the supply chain.
Terrific. So, global fashion is changing, or multinational. I suppose it's still multinational, but it's going more global. For each of you, I'd love to know what was the most challenging or best thing that's happened over the last year, and what do you hope to do in the coming year?
So I think, oh, is that for me first?
Well, both of you, yeah. You can.
Well, you jumped in, so you were ready.
Yeah. Okay, so actually the last year has been one of complete change for the fashion industry. I have to say it is something that has just thrown us all up in the air, because right back after the pandemic, we all assumed everything would go back to the way it was. And in fact, the first year back, 21, 22, we were like, wow, this is like great. We had a big boom because there was, such a big demand for embellished and embroidered garments. And I think collections were just being made and quantities were really good. And we were like, wow, this is really, coming back really well. Unfortunately, I think after that kind of just went flat because everybody overstocked, overbought, overmade. And the last year was one of a complete surprise, because it was a very challenging year. In a sense, it was one of change. So the best thing I think that for us was to realize that now we have to just get used to constantly being in a space where things can change and be very versatile to be changing along with what's going on in the global world. Because the fact is that now we've got some new war going on, and we had, things are just moving so quickly one day to the other. So what we did is we realized that earlier a fashion business would do 4 seasons in a year. Now some did 2, some did, small capsules. They just changed the way the fashion business runs. And a lot of online people started just making tiny capsules. A lot of big brands just did shows for PR and, smaller collections, but then they really did more throughout the year. So we didn't really understand how this was going. So we just had to go with the flow. So the best thing was that we increased our infrastructure. We hired more people. We got some new brands, because we were just moving quickly with the change and increasing our people and our infrastructure to accommodate this kind of change and this rapid movement, which was not now 4 months for a season, but maybe 1 month or 2 months to move really quickly. So, we bagged some really good new clients, some people on our dream list that we still hadn't worked with in a long time. So that was really good. And this movement of change was great. And apart from that, what we hope to do is definitely continue our journey of sustainability, as that's not just a topic of the day, but or of the time, but it is something that is the only way to go, sustainability. So how does our business stay sustainable? How do we preserve our craft? All these things have been now in our hands, and we're working on that continuously. And that is the challenge to keep going.
And of course, a lot of the people that you have working for you are artisans and craftspeople who have amazing deep skills in embroidery.
Yes,
So
we
that, yeah.
yes, I mean we're selling the craft. We're selling the hand embroidery craft, which is specifically only known from India, and the high end or the luxury embroidery is done out of Bombay, which is the city where I am.
Great. And Jose, what about for you? What has been the best thing over the last year, or what changes have happened, and what do you look forward to doing in the future?
Well, I can pretty much echo Gayatri's experience, almost completely. COVID was, I almost hate to say it, very, very good for us. One of the things that was universally accepted um, globally was that the one thing we could do was to get outside and do something, whether that was to run or hike or walk or cycle or whatever. So our segment of the market was very, very strong throughout COVID and through the end of 2022. Um, I will say that our customers, because of our supply chain and our managing, as I said earlier, the supply chain down to the fiber level, our timelines really from farm to finished fabric are quite long. And so we work with our customers on a forecasting process just to have a general understanding of what their planned volumes will be a year, 18 months, and 2 years in the future. I will say that our customers did a historically poor job, almost across the board, of forecasting 2023. And so, to some degree, we were victims of our own success. We delivered very, very well throughout COVID, and so our customers rewarded us with orders and volumes when they couldn't get other types of product. And so they've entered 2023 with, I'll say, some inventory imbalances, and they've balanced those inventories with my production. So, as with Gayatri, 2023 has been a year of resetting a bit. We're seeing that start to turn around, but I think in general, that's starting to, as I said, turn around, and we're seeing customers who didn't buy nearly as much in 2023 as they historically have. They're already starting to re-enter the market as their inventories balance out. What I will say is one very strong positive for us is that the trend toward natural fiber and performance natural fiber continues to gain momentum. So we're seeing interest from companies and brands that historically have either been exclusively synthetic materials or mid-sized brands who now feel that they need to have a position in natural fiber. And so we see that as a continuing trend, and we think it'll be very, very good for us as we look at 2025, 26, and beyond.
That's really good news. For all of us that care about sustainability and the regenerative economy, that's really great news to make progress on that. I also see that one of my, there's a well-known author, Peggy Bloom, that's online with us too. Hi, Peggy. She's written a book on sustainable fashion. A really good book I recommend to everyone. Anyway, so you both have customers who are quite definite about the way they would like things. In other words, they're very demanding. Luxury and Patagonia and other customers. How do you build those relationships over time and then address how they change requests over time? So how do you deal with customers that are really their requirements are really, really high? And feel free to name drop.
Well, I'll start, Gayatri, if you like. I'll give you. It's interesting because I think sustainability is less an endpoint or a finish line than it is an evolution. And so what we did 15 years ago that was and quote unquote sustainable, perhaps today is standard practice. And I think entering the market today as a sustainable supplier might be more difficult than it was 15 years ago as we've evolved. So when we first started working with Patagonia, which was very early in my company's history, they had one specific requirement for sustainability, which was to achieve blue sign status, blue sign accreditation for their wool products. There were some technical challenges associated with that, and essentially they put it out to the market. Whoever reaches this objective first, whoever can provide us with blue sign fabrics, will get our business. And ultimately, that's what uh, enabled us to become a Patagonia supplier. Now, since then, we've evolved with them in what that is, issues of energy consumption, water use, water treatment, all of these things, and animal welfare, and each step of the supply chain, rather than this one objective at the end of the production line. But sustainability, as I said, is a moving target. And what is sustainable for one company is different from other. Each have their own position. We have one customer, for example, whose primary focus is carbon footprint. That doesn't mean that they don't care about recycled materials or they don't care about other aspects of sustainability. But their focus is how can we learn to make products with a lower carbon footprint. And so they might make some concessions that another brand wouldn't, simply because another brand might have a different position. And so that's where sometimes it becomes challenging. We can't be all things to all people. And therefore, can we help this particular customer manufacture our type of product with a better carbon footprint? Can we help Patagonia do better with energy consumption and water consumption? And so we can help improve those things, but we can't be all things to all people. And so ultimately our position, and this is one of the things that we have learned from Patagonia, is listen, we're imperfect, we're in an imperfect world. Today, this is what we can do, and this is what we can offer. This is how we work. This is how we address these particular issues. What we can tell you is that it's better than we were yesterday, and we sincerely hope that it's not as good as we'll be tomorrow. But we can't deliver perfection at any point because it simply just doesn't exist right now.
Imagine that Patagonia sets a really high bar and some of the other companies are coming along sort of. So once you crack that for Patagonia, some of the other companies will come along and follow that path in some ways of changing sustainability concerns.
Yeah, certainly they validate a lot of technologies because they're very pedantic about evaluating them. And so when they adopt a particular technology or a particular process, the industry does tend to follow because once it's been vetted by Patagonia, it's generally accepted to be viable. But as I said, Patagonia are I've learned a lot from Patagonia, and they've probably been at least as valuable as teachers as they have been as customers. In that they themselves will say that they don't say that they do no harm. They say that they will do no unnecessary harm, and they are constantly trying to improve. And the message that I just said, we're not as good as we will be tomorrow, but we're better than we were yesterday. That's really directly from their ethos. They're really trying to improve. They accept that that they're imperfect, and they'll say that very openly.
Yeah, and it's all a learning curve for everyone, including Patagonia, and that's nice to hear them say that because it actually it inspires us to do better, but it also takes some pressure off in terms of nobody's perfect yet.
Correct.
Yeah, that's great. And Gayatri, you deal with a lot of very, very demanding customers in terms of in terms of materials and timing, and we've got to have it now. So can you tell us a bit?
Yeah, actually, our definite ways that they like is now it's all about quality, which of course we have over the years. We have excellent quality. It's also timing, delivery. You cannot be delayed no matter what. And the most important thing is now price. So embroidery is something which earlier never had a cap on price. We had big brands who never really cared or bothered to, tell us that you have a budget or a target for an item. They were like, this is what we want, let us know how much it is. Whereas now it's like, this is what we want, but this is what what we want to pay for it. So we have to work on it, either open up the design or give, try to change some materials if required, or do something where we can match their targets. So it's all about matching their target prices right now. But I think we develop our relationships, given that we already have that forte, and we've already been in business for 25 years, where we're able to offer the best prices and very competitive prices for the good quality and on time, etc. We have our 4 offices located in each international fashion capital. So this is a big thing because we speak the local languages in those places, whether it's Italian in Italy, or French in France, of course, English in New York, in America, or in England. But that's a big thing. And then being able to service them and be there with them at any time they call us. And the other thing is that our factory, as Jose said, reduces carbon footprint because we're a one-stop shop. Not only do we do the embroidery, we can make the entire garment from scratch, and with labels and everything ready to ship to stores to sell, which earlier was not the case because they never wanted the Made in India label. But now the Made in India label is definitely becoming more acceptable, and actually more, it's not like earlier they were like, we don't want this Made in India. But now that we're coming out with our sustainable factories, we're all audited, we have everything in place in terms of, socioeconomic conditions, workplace conditions, etc. We're audited by all the international brands. People know it's safe, it's well made, and the supply chain is transparent. So once the clients get into that space with us, then it becomes a space where they want to stay, and that builds trust. It builds a relationship where they know where the things are being made. They know they can reduce their carbon footprint. Earlier, they would make embroideries with us, ship them to Italy for stitching, or somewhere else for stitching, then somewhere else for something else, and finally it would be 2-3 spots before it was sent to a store. So this is a very important aspect. And we also preempt what our clients want, because we touch them, understand their requirements. Oh, sorry. We also, we study them and we understand them very well to understand what will there be needs in the next season. So I think that is what has sailed and made the change so easy for us. Although we started recognizing this change is happening, so we were able to adapt to it quickly and offer our clients new things within their space to keep them going, to make embroidery still very interesting and important for them. Because as you know, embroideries is an add-on to a normal collection. It's not part of their main collection.
So I'm asking questions, everybody, but think of some questions if you'd like to ask. I know you probably are have some in mind. So in a few minutes, I'll open that up to everyone. Do you think there's increasingly a global fashion culture, or are we still multinational, or are the needs and wants of customers worldwide becoming more diverse, more the same? What do you think in terms of your customers?
Did I answer that connected to my last answer? Jose, is that good?
Of course.
I'm going to ask everybody to mute their, everybody on the call on Zoom, please mute yourself. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
I can't say fashion is global because we have a different look and feel of embroidery, which is what we do in every continent or country. Italy is colorful, I would say it's bling, it's got a lot going on, and it's busy, whereas Paris is very clean, minimalistic, it's like more classic fashion embroideries. UK is a mix of different things, so it could be, either colorful, either tonal, it could be anything. New York is actually very basic and very they want everything in a very price friendly product, even if it's a very luxurious brand. So price is definitely the king there, whereas in other places maybe design is king. So I don't think that it's become one global fashion. It's definitely still moves with its own space and culture and where the brand originates from. And we also knowing, I think, different cultures, knowing different regulations and different things for different areas keeps the fashion different everywhere. So, but now there is just the only one global thing going on at the moment is where they're kind of slowing down or cutting back. Maybe it's just a break because of the mood of what's going on with the war and wars and other things, sadly. But it's a cycle. It's going to return. Humans have only a certain way to keep going back and forth. We can't all stay in a mood. Even that would happen in COVID, but we all bounce back. So I think there is a very minimal little underplay, undertone, fashion-wise globally, but definitely each culture still and country has its own specifications.
Jose, what about from your perspective? I know you're in the athletic apparel area. Is there sort of a growing shared global culture in that, or is it very different?
Well, I think there's certainly some consistencies across markets. A running T-shirt or a cycling jersey, there's relatively few variations that you can do within that. And those activities tend to have their own culture, and those do tend to be somewhat consistent globally. Where we do see quite a bit of difference is when we start to shift a little bit toward casual apparel and fashion. There we do see very, very distinct markets, even within Europe, as Gayatri pointed out. Our Scandinavian business is very different from, our German business from our business in the UK. And again, there are brands that do a pretty good job of tailoring that, but what we're seeing is that there are brand specialists in each of those markets. There's a series of Scandinavian brands, for example, that do a tremendous business within Scandinavia, but are virtually unheard of outside of that. Similarly, there are U.S. brands that do very well in the U.S. and have struggled to get any foothold, any progress in Europe, for example. And I do think that Americans tend to look at, I want to go to Europe, I want to sell in Europe, and don't realize that they are distinct markets, and they do need to be sold individually.
So if you have a question, raise your hand and then I'll invite you up if that's okay. So come on. I'm gonna hand off to, so the microphone will pick you up. I'm gonna ask you can sit here for a second, if you don't mind. Say hello.
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 So my name is Shahan and I'm just starting out a clothing brand. So what best advice would you possibly give someone who's just starting out?
Where is your brand based out of?
So it's for now, like, it's based out of New Jersey.
And it's for the American market?
Yes, it's the American market.
I would say you must, I mean, from my perspective in garments, fashion, so on, you have to know where your, who's your market, what's their price point, what's their look, who's your competitors, because a fashion brand is extremely difficult these days. Instagram has ruined all our lives. I always say that. And, these new ways of marketing with these influencers and blah, 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 it's like you have to have many parts of your business moving together. So while you design well and you know who you're designing for, your marketing has to be super strong. Your representations have to be really good. Your marketing and sales to selling through the stores or tying up with stores has to be good. But it all kind of works together. They all move together. So if one part is not correct or not moving correctly, it affects the others. So, I mean, I had launched a brand called Gaia. It's still there. It's called the World of Gaia in the pandemic because I had a whole factory and the luxury market was down. And we realized the challenges of a brand is these moving parts have to keep moving together. Like if you suddenly just focus on marketing and then your collection, creation and creativity goes. So if you have enough people to do that or a way to supervise all, that would be my advice is to keep a track on that.
Thank you very much.
I would add that you should become a student of where you want to live. And what I mean by that, I mean, obviously there are sort of all the standard business school analyses and things that you want to do in terms of market share and so on. But there's a reason you're starting this brand. And hopefully it's not just, well, I want to make clothing. Hopefully your perspective is something unique, something that you want to add, a void that you see in the market. But become a bit of a historian, because the road is littered with people who have tried what you are trying and haven't succeeded for some reason. And so either their positioning wasn't correct, the product wasn't correct, the pricing wasn't correct, or, if I have to say it, they just got a bit unlucky. If you take a look at the US market right now, there's a company called Vuori, which is, growing very, very quickly, has lots of attention. They've become massive in a 5-year period. There are, you can think of 10 other companies that have tried the same thing and failed for some reason. Reasonable product, reasonably priced, and somehow things didn't align. And so try to understand those things and don't become myopic about, I believe in my product and it has to be, and it's going to succeed. Try to understand why it's going to succeed, why you believe it's going to succeed, rather than just saying, I see this as something that is needed. Become a historian, not just an analyst.
Thank you so much.
Great, thanks.
Hi there. Hey, Jose.
Hi.
We sat next to each other in our intensive. Oh shoot.
Oh, yes.
No.
How are you?
Yes. Hi. I specifically had a question for you, but for both speakers. In terms of the global fashion market, we just talked about how it depends on what country you're selling in, marketing in. As you know, Jose, I'm starting a performance-based apparel brand. And I was just having a conversation with a fellow person here about the word performance and how definitions can vary greatly depending on the industry you're in, even if you're in with the, the global fashion umbrella. So how do you define performance within your own company? And how does that translate? How can we apply that to maybe some of these businesses that are here that have similar goals, but difficulty explaining performance to other people?
Well, it's a great question because performance is different to different people and different activities. So you're a tennis player and you want to make a performance tennis apparel collection. So I think you really need to think about what a tennis player's needs are when playing tennis, and you work backward from there. What's the end application? What's the environment in which the athlete is performing? And what is it that you need that garment and that textile to do? One of the examples that I use often internally as well with potential customers, people ask us, I need to do a base layer program. It's like, okay, well, for what? A base layer for a cyclist is different than a base layer for a runner, which is different from a base layer for a downhill skier. The cyclist has high aerobic output, but high airflow. The runner has high aerobic output, but very little airflow. The skier has high aerobic output, interspersed with periods of inactivity in a closed environment, because generally there's multiple layers and shell and so on. So how that fabric has to perform in each of those situations is different. Therefore, we would engineer a different fabric for each of those applications. So in your case, work backward from how can we help a tennis player feel better, perform better, and then that will start to determine what performance means for you.
Thank you so much.
Well, I'm glad you did tennis. That's my sport. I love that. Vishal, you have your hand raised. Do you want to
yes.
Unmute and then ask your question and then remute if that's the word?
Oh, yes, Caroline, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jose, Gayatri, and everyone else who here. My name is Vishal. I'm an MBA student currently studying supply chain management. So oftentimes in the class, we have a concept called the bullwhip, where some change in demand and supply, some change in demand from the customers end leads to a lot of disruption in the entire supply chain management, which is very much common in the entire fashion industry. So I wanted to know, like, how do you handle such disruptions in change in demand? How do you handle that bullwhip? How do you control it and make sure that your supply matches the demand of the customers, considering the very quick transitions that are happening in the environment?
I'll say that the short answer is, honestly, sometimes not very well. It's difficult. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm not sure at what point you got online, we manage our supply chain down to the farm all the way to finished fabric. So for example, we're currently taking in wool that was contracted a couple of years ago. When we do that both for price and quality purposes. So we're, I'll say, a little bit long on fiber at the moment, given the changes that have happened in demand over 2023, and that will balance out over 2024 as things level out. So Gayatri mentioned earlier that one of the key changes that has happened is that we're under pressure to shorten lead times, to give our customers the greatest flexibility in selecting volumes, and product and color. So unfortunately, that puts pressure on us to essentially to carry some inventory, while at the same time we're trying to be as lean as possible. So there is a bit of a bullwhip. 2 years ago we were scrambling to find fiber and push more fiber through the supply chain. Today we could take on new customers tomorrow and manage that. So we're working with our suppliers to shorten those lead times, keep raw materials in stock, and have potential, in our case, potential growers who will certify that are supplying, who are shearing at different parts of the year. So then rather than having to contract for our wool at one time of the year during the primary shearing season, to have options to take in wool at different times of the year. And that reduces our liability by not having to make commitments for an entire year or 18-month period at one time, and we can incrementalize that. So I think the answer to your question is, it's really understanding that supply chain, and rather than trying to look at the entire problem, is trying to figure out steps in each link of that chain where you can become a bit more efficient.
Thank you.
I'll add that our business is actually a custom order business. So it's very different from maybe what Jose is doing, which is why we're a little lucky, because we our main product, what our cost is manpower, because the product is made by hand. So what we invest is in people. And what we do is we keep a certain number of people, craftsmen in-house, maybe 300, and then we keep a few thousand outside who are subcontracted with us as per our norms and lists and so on and so forth for different types of product. So there the demand actually affects, unfortunately, not anybody in-house, but more so people on the outside, the subcontractors. So we have some which are only our subcontractors, mainly now, I think, as time has gone on. So we try and be fair to give as much we can to everybody, so everyone has something to keep moving. But it is difficult to manage, but it's not like it's going all the way up. Like it crashed during COVID, that we could not help anybody because we had zero demand. So from 100 to 0 is difficult, but from 100 to 80, 80 to 50, 60, I mean, those 20% ups and downs we can manage because it's a man-made product. And people can get occupied with different things, and ours is custom-made orders only. So it's two different businesses. Jose's is giving you where he has to, I guess, procure and keep and buy the materials, and mine is only for orders.
Yeah,
That we
completely.
have.
So, yeah, we are currently doing a project related to the fashion industry. So hopefully we will be able to help you in the future.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully. And I would agree with Gayatri. So I will say that I started the business in 2007. The shift from 2022 to 2023 has been the greatest that I've seen in that 16-year period. So I'll echo what Gayatri said. Normally, variations or errors in our customers' forecasting of 10 or 20 or 30% sort of round out in the aggregate across all of our customers and so on. So somebody's always up a little bit, somebody's down a little bit, and it all sort of works out. Because of over inventory and being overstocked, pretty consistently, all of our customers were off on their forecasts significantly on the downside. So I would call this less of a bullwhip than just simply. Well, I hope it's an anomaly in the inaccuracy of the forecasting and projections that we received.
And if people online would like to ask questions, either raise your hand or put the questions in the chat. The wonderful graduate assistant Sofa is texting me the questions from online. And one to begin with, how did you go about global expansion? It's a great question.
Okay, so Jose, should I start?
Yes, please. Sorry, I was reading a question in the chat that was directed to me.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
No, please.
I think global expansion is a great topic because it's starting is one phase and then growing and expanding is another. So, yeah.
So I'll tell you what happened with us, which was very organic, actually. It was an organic journey. We were in New York. New York was my first office. Right after college, I moved to New York, and a little while later, I started Milaaya Embroideries in the year 2000. And in 2004 or 5, I can't remember which year exactly, there was a kind of a recession. And we got really worried because at that time, we didn't have our own backend, but we had suppliers we work with, but we had people in the office, and we could see that there was a dip. People were not doing so much embroidery. I was like, what were we going to do? So at that time, I realized that Europe was thriving, was doing quite well back in that time. And I was like, hey, why don't we consider, having somebody, like copy or, have this imitate this office if I can set up in another country like Paris. Paris had a lot of fashion brands back in the day. It seemed much more inviting because we had some links through some people. And I met a girl who was from Paris, actually from France. And she was very keen. She was a production manager in another company, and she was very keen to take Milaaya there. And actually, that's how we started there. And she spoke French, and she set up there. So we set up a small office. I used to travel a lot. We used to Google research and meet. In those days, we researched from fashion weeks. So we used to find from fashion weeks all the list of clients. There was no as much as Google and all that. Now, of course, we have everything on the internet. But we started that way. Once that started picking up, I had a person over there in that office. There were like 3 people by the time a couple of years went on. One of them was ready to go to Italy. So I said, why not we replicate this again in Milan? So because we could see then while we were in Paris that the Italians were the strongest, oldest fashion houses as well. You had your Gucci. I mean, the best brands are in Italy. So there and London, we used to just travel between Paris and London for a long time, just do a quick trip and back. But it took time. It took understanding about each country's laws, about labor laws. Hiring people was a nightmare. America is so easy and quick. You can hire someone. If it doesn't work out, you can let them go. It's pretty simple. But in Europe, it's not simple at all. So we did burn our fingers. We had a lot of issues, but you deal with them as they come. But global expansion for a business, then that one place is not doing so well, the other place can take you up. And therefore you keep a balance. And I think that's what happened to us even in the pandemic, because we were spread around. There were some brands that were just doing well in different parts of the world. Some were just not doing well or not doing anything at all, I should say. So that's how at least our journey went into a very organic global expansion.
Jose, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, our
That's
experience was a
interesting.
little bit different. We started in North America and leveraged some relationships that I had when, at the time. But we relatively quickly started selling in Europe, and our approach was really targeted. We tried to mimic what we did in the US, where we captured Patagonia very early on. We started working with brands like Arc'teryx and so on. And that essentially validated us as a startup. As I said earlier, I think um, we've benefited more from being a Patagonia supplier than we've benefited from what we've actually sold them commercially, simply because they validated us as a business very early on in our history. Similarly, we targeted specific brands in Europe as customers. Rafa in the UK, Nerona in Norway. We worked with Solomon very early on, and those were all very targeted to essentially validate us in the European market. And as a result, we became known as sort of this specialist supplier that could do unique things in this new category that they were all trying to play around with.
We have another question from here.
Hello, hi.
Speak as loudly as you can with the microphone.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Hi, my name is Kate. I'm a first-year MBA student. I started my own jewelry company in Netherlands a couple of years ago, and now I am considering to either expand it to here or I start something new in US. So I have a lot of options. Like, do I expand if I choose expand, and do I bring the same style and design, or I just start something new and do some localized adjustment? So do you have some advice regarding that? Like, what are the key factors I need to consider?
I think you need to be very objective in your evaluation of the product and its suitability for the US market relative to where you launched. That's a very difficult thing for us to do when we're product people, because it's part of us. We're very passionate about it because we love it, and we've had some success in one location. We believe that success is universal, and everybody else is going to love it. So jewelry is unique. It's very personal, and so before you say, well, I'm just going to take this and transfer it, I would again just be a student of the market and the people that you want to target, and make sure that the style translates. And if you don't think it translates 100%, look at ways that you might be able to adapt it, to adjust it for the market before you start completely fresh with a new concept.
Yeah, I would add to it that, so I don't make the end product. Somebody else designs it, and I manufacture a part of it for them. That's how you can say it. So I don't have to our business doesn't deal with the end marketing and the end, price issues and marketing, sales, all that, which is what you're doing. Yours is you're making your own brand and you have to sell it. So definitely, all the, you learn in marketing, your 4 Ps, you in product place, all the price, all those things. And I think you have to also see who's there and what you're doing. Is it suitable to the American customer and client? Will they appreciate it? The price, is it right? Who would be your ideal customers? Would they buy it? How is it different from what's selling in the market now? What is your USP? The American market is very saturated with, I think, everything. And I think when anybody launches any business there, you do have to consider these points, along with those other ones that I mentioned earlier, which was, how are you going to market, and how are you going to create a space for yourself visually for your customers to notice you and be enticed to wear your jewelry.
Thank you so much.
So a lot of people are asking questions online about the biggest challenges facing the fashion industry in terms of sustainability. Some people are mentioning how can we reduce the environmental impact in the production stage? What methods do you follow? But also there's a very interesting question about the wastage in the fashion industry. Even though brands are getting the numbers better, there still seems to be a lot of wastage occurring. What are your thoughts on that?
So actually we don't, because we are suppliers to the brands, we don't know what happens thereafter. And the only thing when we ever discuss with them is they do tell us that they all sell off to a lot of that's what they say, that they sell to all the off-price stores. But I'm just thinking, have I ever seen an off-price store for Dior or Chanel or any of those brands? But I know that there are, because like in Bicester Village, which is in outside London, and there's in New York, there's so many as well. You go, you find all your brands for less. So there is that one huge scale that goes on there. And but really what happens with them, I mean, even I, as a supplier to these brands, even we have never understood what happens with all that merchandise that's made, which doesn't get sold. I mean, you walk into a store, you'll see somebody buying one off thing here and there. Okay, let's say 10 were sold. How can you assume every piece was sold in every store, everywhere around the country, around the world? So that's a question we should all get together and ask all the brands, I think.
Well, I think at the very high end of the fashion market, those products are either destroyed or buried simply because they don't want them in the market off price. And so that is just an almost unforgivable waste. But I think, Carolyn, I think the question relates more to manufacturing processes. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, there's some inherent inefficiencies in the process of making, rolled goods and then cutting it into garments and panels, and then there's some waste there. There's waste on our end. We lose fiber in the dye process. We lose some material in trimming the ends of rolls, so it's easier to lay out. We ourselves are working on a program of sort of taking that waste and those trimmings, chopping it up, creating some felted products that then can be used for accessories, iPod cases and things like that. It's a multi-year project, really, because the supply chain is anything but a straight line. We have some waste in Thailand where we manufacture. We have customers with trim waste, with yield waste from cutting garments in different parts of the world. Getting that collected. There aren't a lot of people in the world that do felting. Even fewer that will take all this stuff and cut it up for us and make it into something that can be felted. So that's one way that we can do things. We try to do more efficient in our manufacturing processes so that our yields are improved. And I think one of the things that does help waste is longevity of product. So one of the things that we work very, very hard on is making our product more durable. And ultimately, our customers are replacing their products less frequently than other similar products, and certainly than I'll say fast fashion garments. And so that in and of itself is a big improvement in waste, simply because fewer garments are being made and later disposed of. But there are some at least in my world, some burgeoning efforts. Smart Wool takes socks back, and they're able to repurpose those, cut them back. Patagonia takes garments back for repair. They're working hard on a program where they'll make hybrid garments. They'll take down-filled or puffy jackets back, and you can now buy on a limited basis these hybrid garments, but it'll have a different color sleeve, or the panels will be different because they've been able to take parts of garments and rebuild them. that's certainly not commercially viable and it's not scalable, but it's an interesting concept of how we can repurpose things rather than, the sleeve has a tear in it and I'm losing the fill. This has to go in a landfill and having that go back to be repurposed, at least partially repurposed. So it's an interesting concept that hopefully will take hold.
This is wonderful information. Yeah, go ahead. Did you want to say something, Gayatri? No.
No, I was just saying ours, on the other hand, is very lean because we are made to order. So we have all the costing done as per the material and the fabric and consumption with markers laid out. Of course, you have your little wastage around the sides when you cut, but which we sell to, some in India, everything is recycled. I don't know if you know, it's an age-old tradition here, from newspapers to bottles to everything. So other than that, we have to keep our production very lean, which means we just buy enough material so that we can, and then these are like materials like sequins, beads, etc., which you can reuse. Even if there's a wastage, you can make a new swatch, a new design with leftovers. So luckily for us, we don't feel that, and it's handmade. So we don't feel that we're wasting a lot of, we have a lot of wastage when production happens. Maybe a little in sampling, but not as much in production because our costs have to be super lean in these days.
We're coming to the close. We've got a few more minutes, and I have a wonderful question here that I'm actually wondering about too. Actually, two quick questions. First one I really like. What drives you? Each of you. What really drives each of you?
So I think I have a few different aspects that drive me. One is definitely, now our team is so big, we're like 500 people, all these people around the world. Just working with them daily, empowering them to give their best to be. So that's like one angle about my commitment to these people and being their kind of cheerleader, their leader, their guide, their mentor, in a very, it's a very large way. That keeps me going for sure. Other than that, I love the creative aspect, the fact that we have this power, this energy to create and provide amazing designs and embroideries that we show to our international top luxury brands of the world, which are then on the ramps, on their clothes in Met Gala and fashion weeks and on celebrities around the world, all the way. In fact, Milaaya means to bring together. So the whole concept was to bring the arts and crafts of India to the world, to the Western world. So that is a very empowering, it's a very great feeling. And putting these two things together, along with many other things, of course, but these are the two greatest aspects, the creativity and the people that I have now, bringing them together to offer this unique product to different and amazing top luxury brands around the world is definitely just something that keeps inspiring us, because every season is different, every collection is different, every brand is different, and there are always more to conquer.
Jose?
Well, I have 3 children in American colleges, 4 if I count myself, and that's highly motivating in terms of generating value. But I'll echo Gayatri here as well. I mean, we don't have nearly as many employees, but between our employees and the people who work in our factories, we're usually for our 3 core suppliers in Thailand, we're 50%, if not more, of their total volumes. So there's certainly a sense of responsibility to these people to keep things going. But ultimately, for me, it's about the product. I still love making product. I still love engineering product. We're large enough now that I have people who do most of the heavy lifting on a day-to-day basis of sort of execution and orders and so on. I mean, originally it was me with my laptop, and every order, every development, every invoice, flowed through me. Most of that doesn't. So I now, help problem solve and troubleshoot across the company. But I get to spend a fair amount of time talking with customers about, their products strategically, how we can help, and then developing our own. And I still get a kick out of that.
That's terrific. And just one final thing. Do you have any inspirational messages for students sitting here and online that would like to either join the fashion industry or actually start their own entrepreneurial venture in fashion?
I would say immediately off the top of my head, first work for one. It's very important before you, at least I feel that before you, I worked at Saks Fifth Avenue as a buyer for a little while before I started my business, which is nothing related to my business, but I just say that you must work in a professional environment with an already existing fashion designer or a brand or whatever it is that you're looking to do to understand what all it entails. It'll just make you smarter, wiser. It'll give you a leap ahead and make you think better. Once you have some experience in your hand and you have that, your idea is your own, your creativity is your own. No one can steal that from you. So whether you start a year later or 2 years later or now, that is going to stay with you and that will keep evolving and growing. But just what will set you off right is to watch and learn how it's done in the real world before you begin. That's the good advice that I can think of for you.
I think that's great advice. Certainly understanding the industry, the market, and how things work will save you a ton of time and headaches and money when you start your own. And I've said this a couple of times, or at least implied it. Try to be objective in your evaluation of the need for your business, and how you are going to provide a unique offering, or how are you going to get people to buy your product. Quite often we'll say, well, geez, this doesn't exist, and therefore I should create it. And that may very well be true. There's certainly many companies who have created need, who have identified a need that didn't exist. But sometimes it doesn't exist because there is no need for it. And we tend to extrapolate from our own point of view onto an entire market, onto an entire industry. And that's not necessarily the case. So you're in business school, so you're there really to get some quantitative and analytical skills. Don't forget to apply those when you decide that you want to start a business.
This has been quite amazing. Thank you so much, Gayatri Khanna and Jose Fernandez. This is terrific. We greatly appreciate you taking time. Gayatri, I'm so sorry to be keeping you up so late in India.
Don't worry.
But really appreciate you being with us at the Fashion Entrepreneurial Initiative at Babson College. And thank you to Jonathan Griffiths and everyone at the Weissman Foundry. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Carolyn. There are a number of questions in the chat. If you want to keep it open, I'm happy to reply to those. I know it's late for Gayatri. I can certainly stay on. I see one from Maria. Yes, I'm happy to connect with you. I haven't been able to sort of get here to reply to your direct chat, Maria, but I'm happy to chat with you. You can reach me through my Babson email. You can reach me through my Babson email or whatever.
Thank you so much, Jose.
I've also put my email in the chat. If anybody wants to talk with me on another time about any questions or about your own journeys, and I can be of any help, I would love to. So
Yeah.
reach out to me on email. That's the best way to get me, and then we can plan forward. But Caroline, thank you so much for this opportunity. And as I say, I envy all those kids there because I never had that opportunity. So guys, make the most of it, enjoy it, and thank you so much for today. And Jose, really nice meeting you.
Yeah.
Likewise, Gayatri.
Yeah,
so
good
much.
to see both of you. It's great. All right. Thanks again.
Thank you. Good night. Bye. Good day, rather.
Bye.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to leave it open, Jose, so you can read the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks so much. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Perfect. Or you nicely done for you too. Thank you at the end.
I appreciate it.